The musicians suddenly blared out a series of notes, much louder than before. The walls seemed to vibrate from the volume. It was much different from the song I was humming a few moments ago. The song was fast-paced, suspenseful, like something you might hear in a good horror movie. I realized something at that moment. It was warning me. I didn't have a chance to wonder why as I looked up. What I saw dangling from the ceiling was something I could hardly put into words. Where would I even start with describing what I saw? My eyes burned when I looked at it. Tears began to overtake my vision. The lenses on my gas mask began to fog up. I could hear my radio crackling with some kind of interference. My trigger felt like it weighed 50 pounds. It was reaching out to me, but I quickly noticed it didn't have any hands. What I remember most was his misshapen smile, or maybe it was a sneer. I couldn't tell. I finally squeezed the trigger. I was quickly glad I chose buckshot this time. Otherwise, I probably would have missed. I slammed fire 2 shells into it. I know I had it, but it didn't stop it. I was confident it took an arm off, if you could call it that, but it did give me just enough time to bolt for the door.
Fuck! Class 5!
I yelled into the radio as my hand grasped the doorknob. I swung the door open and slammed it shut behind me, my heavy boots stomping loudly as I took off into a dead sprint down the never-ending hallway. I could hardly see where I was going out of the foggy lenses.
Get the fuck out of there, Locke!
I heard Ness scream through the crackling interference of my radio. That's when I heard those god-awful sounds coming from behind me. The door I just shut bulged as it slammed into it with its endless body. The door began to bend and twist as its writhing appendages reached through the jagged gaps it made. The sounds it made, like nothing I had ever heard in all my years of being a collector. A deep, rumbling murmur shook my surroundings. The sound traveled up through my entire body as this hum only increased in volume. The light flickered rapidly as they were reanimated. My breathing only increased in rhythm as I reached the double doors back to the arcade. I could hear the sound of the door behind me finally giving way as it flew off its hinges and slammed to the ground. My shoulder checked the next door open, quickly shutting it behind me. That's when I noticed the arcade begin to flicker a light. It wasn't just the lights this time. It was the arcade machines too. The dusty screens and the debris-ridden speakers began to reanimate. Light filled the forgotten arcade, slow and sputtering at first, like something was waking up that shouldn't. Colored bulbs cracked to life one by one, blinking and stuttering like fireflies drowning in static. The machines, long dead and dust-caked, flickered to their retract modes. Glitched gameplay previews stuttered out across the screens. Voices distorted through shredded speakers. One cabinet deep in the row behind me let out a warped shriek. It let out a familiar chime. Daytona. It was blown out, distorted, far too loud for such a hollow space. The sound hit my chest like it was a shockwave, cheerful, enthusiastic, completely wrong. It echoed through the arcade like something remembering how to be alive, even if it didn't understand why. Even through the flashing lights and mechanical noise, I heard it, the door creaking open. The one I knew I had locked behind me. It slithered, it crawled, it walked, all at once, but never made a sound when it moved. I ducked low behind a row of jammed cabinets, trying not to breathe too loud. My gear felt like dead weight now. I tried to keep my breathing as quiet as possible, even with the adrenaline pumping into my veins. I was hardly able to stand with how much my legs were shaking. Even though it didn't make a sound when it moved, I could hear a very muffled creak from the floor itself from its mass. It whirred and warbled. It almost sounded like it was mechanical in nature instead of coming from a living being. The doorway was close, but not close enough for me to make a mad dash for it without it catching up to me before I could crawl out back under that barred door. I slowly reached on my belt for something I'd been saving for a rainy day just like this, an incendiary grenade. It felt like it took a lifetime for me to unhook it from my webbing without alerting it to my presence. I let my shotgun hang from the sling across my chest as I took off the various safety pins on the grenade. I slowly peeked through a gap between the two machines. I could see its massive form almost covering the entire gap. I slowly pied the corner with my finger on the pin of the grenade, ready to pull it at any time. It wasn't facing me this time. It was completely still, listening for the smallest sounds. I twisted and pulled the pin with considerable force. I knew it heard it because it stopped making those god-awful sounds. My arms felt heavy as lead. I fought my shaking hands to keep my thumb on the clip, to keep it from going off in my hand. It turned to look at me with that smile that was too wide, too misshapen. That's when I realized it wasn't smiling. It just didn't have any lips for its spiraling maw. Its many eyes stared right into me. Every single cell of my body screamed at me to run, to hide. I grit my teeth and finally tossed the grenade. I didn't know if the live feed was still active. I hoped it was, but I knew this must have been hard for her to watch. But at least she had the common sense to stay quiet while this thing was after me. I felt tempted to turn off the live feed so she didn't have to watch me get ripped apart by this thing. What little chances I had lay in that small cylinder of thermite. The grenade landed right next to it. It glanced over at it with its many independently blinking eyes. That's when it finally went off. First thing I saw was the smoke, then the grenade hissing harshly as it released a cone of sparks. The mold-covered carpet was the first thing to catch aflame. I expected to hear it screeching, screaming, anything, but it was silent. Normally, a lot of these things scream when fire touches them. They hate it more than anything else. I took my chance and dashed for the doorway as the smoke began to fill the room. I reached the barred door and practically threw my body through the gap. I slammed it shut and made sure it couldn't be opened this time. My breathing was ragged as I laid on the floor covered in sweat. Smoke had finally claimed the majority of the room, obscuring my view of its interior. I was about to push myself back up to continue running, but something stopped me. An orange glow could be seen through the thick smoke. That's when I saw it. It was alive. It emerged from the smoke, its entire form engulfed in flames. That's when I realized how tall it really was. It stooped to gaze down at me. The flames didn't seem to bother it as its flesh began to char. I aimed my shotgun at it with my unsteady hands as it continued to stare at me from its side of the barred door. Its lipless maw began to move like it was trying to speak. I was glued to the spot as I could only stare at it with wide eyes as they stung from looking at it. Its appendages wrapped itself around the bar, still staring down at me. I felt thoughts that weren't my own enter my mind. A single word kept repeating itself over and over again from a voice I'd never heard in my entire life. Reanimator. It continued to echo in the confines of my skull. Finally, my radio screamed to life once again, and I heard Nest's calming voice over the net. I could only make out one word.
Run.
This seemed to snap me out of my trance. I pushed myself to my feet and took off down the hallway. The lights around me were flashing wildly as my legs burned from all the gear I was running with. I rounded the corner, entering the main atrium again. I came to a screeching halt at what I saw next. Everything was back to normal. All the decay, all the disrepair, it was gone. The lights were back. The biting cold air had vanished entirely. The mall wasn't just repaired, it was alive again. There were people. There were families and groups of teenagers meeting up at the food court after school, all walking by at a leisurely pace for a slow afternoon of shopping. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The people looked normal enough at first. Nirvana shirts, jeans, the newest kicks, all wearing bright summer wear, but I couldn't see any of their faces. They weren't missing them entirely. They were fuzzy, like trying to take a picture of someone's face when the camera was out of focus. They didn't seem to even notice I was there. Some of them even walked right through me like I was a hologram. I was lost. Lost in more ways than I could possibly imagine. I reached for my radio, in vain hope I could still reach Nest.
Nest, can you hear me?
I desperately wished to hear Nest's nonchalant voice over the net. I could only hear static from the other end. I was truly alone in this mall of ghosts. The various storefronts were stocked again. The windows were pristine and undamaged. I could see the out-of-focus people lazily walking back and forth between the aisles like it was just another day for them. Some of them occupied the colorful seating of the food court and gestured to each other like they were having casual conversations. But the only sounds I could hear from them were the indistinct mumblings and murmurs of human voices. Sometimes I missed those days. I missed feeling safe. I missed coming back home to her smiling face. I missed the simple monotony of a 9 to 5. Hell, I even missed those annoying-ass jingles they played for ads on daytime TV. I missed it all. I began to wonder if this is where I'd spend the rest of my days, wandering in this endless mall, unseen, unnoticed, bound to this mockery of normal life. I traipsed forward, not sure where to even go at this point, besides the exit I came from. I passed the now pristine payphones. One of them began to ring suddenly. I immediately stopped where I was. I sighed slowly and walked towards the still ringing phone. That's when I felt a warm hand grasping my shoulder. I turned sharply, bringing my shotgun to bear. Staring back at me was a young woman in her mid-20s. Her face was different from the others. Her face was in focus. She had delicate features, jet black hair with long bangs. She had unnaturally pale eyes. "You shouldn't answer that," she said in a soft yet firm voice. I ripped free from her grip and backed away from her, still aiming my shotgun at her.
Why not?
I asked in a flat tone. "You don't want to know what it will tell you." I lowered my shotgun slightly.
It?
I asked, not liking where this was going. "The reanimator." I was silent for a moment, debating what I should even do at this point.
Who are you?
I asked warily. She crossed her arms and tilted her head slightly as she regarded me. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." I opened my mouth to ask her another question, but she cut me off. "No more questions, Loeb. You need to leave this place."
How?
I asked with hesitation, unnerved she even knew my name. I knew she probably wouldn't tell me how she knew. "Same way you came in. You don't have much time. It's coming. You want to see Lorraine again, don't you?" My eyes widened as I was stunned at silence. I finally mustered up some words to respond to her.
Yes.
"Then go," she said with a wave of her hand. The last thing I saw her do was wink at me before she turned and walked a few steps away from me, and her form faded entirely from my vision. Then I heard that horrifying yet familiar humming. It was close. I knew I couldn't hide from it. Fighting it was a losing battle. All I could do was run, pray for my survival. That's exactly what I did at that moment. I ran like I never ran before in my entire life. The humming was getting closer even as I increased my speed. I finally saw my way out. The doors I took to get inside the mall. Now a pristine set of sliding glass doors. Outside I could see a familiar sight. Snow-covered streets, the wreckages of cars, frozen corpses. I slammed the doors open as I barreled myself outside, using the last vestiges of my energy and my will to live. I panted as I continued sprinting into the knee-deep snow, not caring about my gear getting all covered in snow. My radio began to squawk at me as I heard Nest's worried voice over comms.
Scepter! Scepter, come in!
I'm here.
I could hear Nest sigh in relief from the other end.
Thank fuck. Your feed cut and I couldn't reach you.
I took a deep breath, in and out.
I'm okay. I'm sorry.
I said in between breaths.
No, shut up, just get back safe.
I turned to look back at the mall once again. It was in disrepair, ruined, worn down. The neon sign above the doorway that read Grover Mall began to flicker. I cursed under my breath and raised my shotgun to my shoulder. I saw its body coil itself around the doorway. Its infinite eyes stared at me as I backed away from the mall. It observed me for a second before it suddenly recessed its measureless form back within the confines of the mall. I didn't know why it didn't come after me. Nest made one last transmission before going quiet for a while.
Okay, the money will be in the dead drop. Pickup is 10 minutes away. Nest out.
I sighed and turned away from that awful place and walked down the treacherous road to await pickup. I always try to avoid that place when taking contracts. I wish I could say I never did collector work again, but I was in no place to quit. I went back to that church, smoked a couple cigs, stared into the embers of the pastor's fire, and went out to do it all over again the next day. But I never went back to Blackout Zone 5.